Edinburgh Reel is sponsored by Total Health, one of the UK's leading wellbeing organisations committed to helping individuals, athletes and businesses build health and performance.
This is Edinburgh Reel, a show dedicated to delivering compelling conversations with fascinating people. I'm Elliot Reeves and I'm joined by my co-host Craig Alley. Today's guest is Gavin Oattes. Gavin is the owner and managing director of Tree of Knowledge, an organisation whose vision is to inspire the world. I'm right behind you. You're also the inventor of Study Ninja. You're an international keynote speaker, an award-winning comedian, a children's author, a former Young Entrepreneur of the Year, and you've appeared on BBC's Dragon's Den. Gavin, it's absolutely tremendous to have you here. Welcome to Edinburgh Reel.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to come and be a part of this.
Fantastic. It's great to have you, so thank you for coming. So it would be great if you could kick off and tell us a bit about your childhood and what your upbringing was like, where it was, and the whole shooting match.
Fab. So, do you know, I think back to my childhood with the fondest of memories. I grew up in a town called Troon in Ayrshire on the west coast of Scotland. A very small seaside golfing town. I went to a fantastic primary school, fantastic high school. Fortunate enough to have both my mum and dad in my life. My parents were amazing people. My mum was a PE teacher, so I was excellent at running along benches and throwing beanbags. Do a wicked forward roll. Don't ever tell her I said that. My dad was a quantity surveyor. So I can tell you how many bricks you need to build a house. And I have an older brother called Colin. And you know, we had an amazing childhood. We were a very close family. My parents, very much played a huge part in, I think, who I am today. Always very encouraging. We were by no means a well-off family, but I didn't want for anything. Mm-hmm. We were always encouraged to fulfil your ambitions. Through school. Certainly in primary school, I think I was a nice wee boy. I was incredibly nervous. I was definitely a worrier when I was younger. In fact, I always remember my first moment where I discovered that I wanted to speak for a living. Primary one, and it was early on. So school starts in August, it must have been September, October, and the head teacher was coming around the classrooms explaining to all the kids that there was going to be a pantomime that year in the school. And of course, I think anyone from Scotland is I was to say a fan of pantomime. I know some people hate pantomime, but being from the West Coast, I loved pantomime, and I still to this day love pantomime. Mm-hmm. And the head teacher came in and explained that this year, as part of the pantomime, there was going to be a giant. So in my mind, there's these huge big legs that go across the stage. I'm thinking, this is unreal. I've been to pantomime, and they're going to have one in my school where I now go because I'm 5 and I go to school now. And they said there's a particular scene, primary one, where the giant's coming in and he's coming to get his cheese. And she said it's going to be a huge big bit of cheese. And I'm thinking, a huge big bit of cheese, that's going to be amazing. Giant big piece of cheese on the stage. And she said, we need primary ones to be mice who are going to run on stage and steal the cheese. And I was like, I'm going to steal the cheese, but it's going to be a giant bit of cheese, so there's probably going to be 6 primary ones all carrying this giant bit of cheese as these big legs are This is how it was in my head. And she said, so primary one, I need to know who wants to be a mouse. And my hand shot up, and I couldn't have been more sure I was going to be on stage. I've never been on stage in my life. I got this huge adrenaline rush, this thought of being up there in front of an audience and all those people laughing and cheering like I used to do when I went to see pantomime. This was dream come true, which I'd never realised I wanted to do. And my hand shot up and she said, Gavin Oattes, you want to be a mouse? And I said, no, I just want to go to the toilet. And in that moment, I shat it. I had that moment where I panicked. I got the fright of my life within that moment. Because she came to me first, it was now a reality. It wasn't this wonderful dream of being up there with the big legs and the big cheese. It was, oh no, you're going to have to be up on that stage in front of those people. And I just got this rush of nerves. And she said, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I just need to go to the toilet. And she went, are you sure? And I was like, yes. And she went, on you go. And off I went to the toilet. And I went to the toilet and I cried. I put myself in the cubicle, shut the door, and I was so embarrassed because deep down I wanted to be on that stage. And from that moment on, I thought I will never, ever let my nerves get the better of me again. They did. Never went on stage until I was 18 years of age. So it took a while, but we'll maybe explore that a wee bit later on. But I always, that's a real strong memory of being 5. But no, my childhood was amazing. As a family, we went. We were lucky to go on holiday each year. My parents would save all year just so we could go and do maybe 2 weeks in Menorca or something. I mean, that's back in the days where 2 weeks in Menorca was cheaper than a week in Centre Parks or something like that, you know. And my brother and I were very close. And I was a big fan of rugby as a kid. Of course, living in Troon, you've got the beach on your doorstep. We would just run and cycle and play all day. And then even at high school, most people would congregate on the beach and do things you're not meant to do.
Excellent.
So my childhood was great. Lots of very, very happy memories, and I wouldn't change it.
Excellent. It's a really good introduction. Thank you. So presumably you left school, and I know you went to Aberdeen University.
I did.
And what was it you studied there then?
Well, I went to Aberdeen. When I actually went to a place called Northern College of Education, which then amalgamated with Aberdeen University. But Northern College, it was a teacher training facility. So they literally, the courses they ran were B.Ed primary teaching courses, B.Ed music teaching courses, and then the postgrad secondary. And that was it. It was a tiny little campus, the most extraordinary little campus, just a wonderful, almost like a little village feel. So I went and spent 4 years training to become a primary school teacher. Learned very quickly that I didn't want to be a primary school teacher.
I think that happens to a lot of people, doesn't it?
I loved huge elements of being a primary school teacher. The working with the kids is the great part. You, as I often tell audiences, you find yourself surrounded by the most creative minds you could ever imagine yourself working with. I don't think I've ever been more inspired by other human beings than I was working with those kids who were under the age of 10. So 4 years up in Aberdeen, training as a primary school teacher, incredible course, real ups and downs through my 4 years at university. You're just fighting against doing the degree thing, maybe doing that to keep mum and dad happy, versus this unbelievable urge to be a stand-up comedian, and to move into some kind of.
So you were feeling that at that point. You were kind of you were expressing that you wanted to be a comedian. You were quite aware of that.
I wanted to be on stage. I knew I wanted to be on stage from when I was 5. That day in primary 1. I didn't do any performing through primary or secondary. All the way through high school, I didn't have the guts or the confidence to audition for any show. I think it's changed days now. I think the thought of young teenage boys singing, dancing, performing, acting, it's just so much. It's just a thing now, But I struggled to even read from a book in class. I would feel myself going incredibly red, and be Oates taking a beamer. Great, thanks lads, thanks for pointing that one out. And you'd hear people sitting there going,
oh, geez.
And you're like, well, you're a dick. So I had this fear of getting up and performing. As a young kid, I worried a lot. I worried about everything. Every time I was ill, I was convinced I was going to die or something like that.
And where do you think that came from? I mean, is that something?
I think it was my dad.
Okay.
I think my dad was a worrier, based on some of the stories I've heard. But he was also the funniest person you would ever meet in your entire life. I think it's maybe. I think a lot of comedians and performers have a nervousness and to it. But you know, in high school, I had friends. I was part of the rugby crowd and had don't get me wrong, I had great times, but I was worried about everything. Worried about girls, worried about bullies, worried about failing, just worried about a huge amount. But where I found relief and solace, I don't know if that's the right word, was in people like Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. Reeves and Mortimer, when I was quite young, my brother used to be allowed to watch Vic Reeves' Big Night Out. I don't know if it's a programme you ever watched, but I wasn't allowed to watch it. I was just that wee bit too young, and I would sneak down the stairs and hide behind the sofa, and I would watch Vic Reeves' Big Night Out, and I couldn't believe that this man was able to do this stuff. It was so stupid, so off the wall. It wasn't rude, it wasn't offensive, and that's what I loved about it. There was nothing of it. It wasn't adult humour, it was just nonsense. And I would laugh. My parents knew I was behind the sofa. I would laugh and laugh and laugh. You know, they did a sketch about the man with the wobbly hand. Just a man doing this. Genius. In my mind it is. And Novelty Island, and Vic would come on with his handbag that had a doorbell on it. I mean, just crazy stuff. And I just thought it was wonderful. And from a very young age, I thought I want to do that. And my best friend at school was a guy called Rory Brown, known as Rolls, and Rolls had the same obsession with this ridiculous surreal humour that I did, and from a very young age we used to play about with that sort of stuff and joke about it, and when we got into our teens we actually started writing sketches, but we didn't tell anybody, ever. So it was always there. My dad had introduced me to Monty Python at a young age, people, and then more traditional stand-up as well, you know, the likes of Billy Connolly. So the thought of being able to go up on a stage and make people feel the way that Reeves and Mortimer or The Fast Show or Billy Connolly was making me feel, because it wasn't just about laughing, you felt something. They made you feel great. You know, there was moments where the hairs would stand on the back of your neck, and it's just like I want to find something that allows me to do that. And primary school teaching did allow me to do that. That's the perfect job. To be able to stand up and inspire. You have an audience of, you know, maybe around 28, 29, 30 kids every day from 9 till 3:30, and you have to be able to entertain, enlighten, educate. You have to engage with them in a way that takes them on this wonderful journey every day of learning. So there was always a desire to get up there. Primary teaching gave me that, but at the back of my mind there was this, it was in here, just urge to get up there and do something much more off the wall.
So how scary was it the first time you did stand-up comedy?
Unbelievably scary.
Could imagine.
Our first ever gig was actually at Aberdeen University. The only reason it was there was the Daily Telegraph used to do a thing called the Open Mic Awards, and we found out there was heats taking place in different student unions, and they were having these heats at Aberdeen, so we entered, or I entered, us, without telling Rory, and then eventually phoned him, and because he was still living in Troon at the time, he actually moved to Aberdeen just so that I could still do my degree, but we could work on this stuff. And we wrote we had to do 10 minutes maximum, and we wrote the most ridiculous thing we could think of. I can't remember what it was now. I know we were wearing dressing gowns, and we had a small child's police motorbike that I was driving about on, and I had a sword in the back of it. That's all I remember. It was nonsense. But we went for dinner beforehand just to get away from, we had a lot of friends coming just to get away from it. And I remember there was a wee Italian restaurant across the road, and I ordered a lasagna. I couldn't eat it. I couldn't even look at it. I just wanted to spew everywhere. But we went on that night, and you know, we absolutely smashed it. And it was life-changing. It was, I can't describe how wonderful that moment felt. So we very quickly signed up for another gig, and that was the night we got booed off. And then we realised how hard this was going to be. But amazing, and I wouldn't change it for the world. We had some incredible experiences, and we'll maybe explore other gigs later on.
Yeah, excellent. So you qualified as a teacher. What was your first teaching gig, so to speak?
So I graduated 2001. Where did I teach first? I started doing some supply teaching at a school in Aberdeen City called Gilcomston Primary School. Excellent school, inner city school. I'd actually done my final placement in 4th year at uni in that school, so I already knew many of the staff. The kids knew who I was, and that was 2001. And actually, I'll tell you why I remember that. So the schools went back in August. We'd had this. I graduated in the June. We had the summer. Schools went back in August, but I picked up supply at Gilcomston in September, and it was September 11th, 2001. And so I remember being in the school on that day when that happened in New York. So anytime I think about my first proper teaching job, I remember that day. You know.
Nice.
But Gilcomston was a great school, amazing people, real kids, you know, and I mainly sort of taught primary 6 and primary 7 at that point. And again, just even in that few weeks, in that school, I learned so much. But really, the dream, if you like, was coming a few weeks later, because in November of 2001, me and Rory were heading off to perform at the Melbourne Comedy Festival in Australia, having just spent that last 3 or 4 years working and training and rehearsing and practicing and gigging whilst doing the degree. So I was loving my teaching, but there was this opportunity out in Australia looming. And when you're in the classroom, you're focused, you're on it. But the minute I walked out that door, my brain was get up on that stage and go make people laugh. But primary school teaching is one of the most rewarding jobs you could ever do. And if there's anybody watching this feeling like they have a calling to go into teaching, go do it and go change these people's lives. You know, it's wonderful.
Which is, I suppose, what you're doing now. That's your focus at the moment.
It is, absolutely. I think what I do now is it's my primary teaching and my stand-up. And somehow I've carved out a career right in the middle where I've been able to pull the two together. I believe I have the best job in the world.
That was a well spent degree. Most people normally just shave through their degree and get really drunk. You've come up with something really worthwhile.
I think so. I think so. I certainly believe what we're doing is incredibly worthwhile. I really believe that at Tree of Knowledge we make a difference on so many different levels. You know, we work with very young kids all the way through to people who are hugely experienced in the world of business. We work with parents, you know. So whether you're working with a 12-year-old child or a chief exec who's multi-award winning in this big global organisation, you know, we can go in there and we have an approach to everything we do that's, I've mentioned it already with the primary teaching, it's entertain, enlighten, educate in that order. I'm a great believer that if you can make someone laugh, feel something and give them some kind of learning, you're onto something. And you know, I really believe, you know, you mentioned the vision at Tree of Knowledge is to inspire the world. You know, it's a big goal, but that's what we want to do. So I don't understand why nobody else would want to do that. You know? So let's go inspire the world. And we're giving it everything we can, you know. But yeah, definitely right now it's primary school teaching, stand-up comedy, meeting somewhere in the middle, and it seems to be working.
And so do you want to explain a wee bit about what you would educate these people in and
absolutely.
How you work with them?
Tree of Knowledge, I guess, is what you would call a motivational and engagement training organisation. We travel all over the UK, into parts of Europe, occasionally slightly further afield, working with all sorts of wonderful people. So in schools, we deliver workshops and seminars, all sorts of wonderful interactive learning experiences, all around subjects such as motivation, you know, growth mindset, well-being, leadership, communication, you know, exam preparation. You know, we do presentation masterclasses for prefects, for example. We do workshops around parent involvement, parental involvement. So, you know, if a school has us in working, then we do these workshops for parents as well. And then if we're working with teachers, we have workshops called, for example, putting the fun back in the staff room. You know, we've got one called Let It Go. I'm not about to sing. Actually, I totally am. No. And then, of course, so that's the education side. Then we have what we refer to as the corporate side of our business. And you know, again, we have workshops. It's similar subject matter, but within that work setting. So again, it's, you know, things around leadership, engagement, you know, high performing teams. You know, we've got stuff that's the out and out motivational stuff. And what's come from this is, again, kind of carved out another little career with the keynote speaking. So a huge part of my time now is spent delivering keynote speeches all over. You're kind of 45 minutes to an hour where you get to go up there and just, you know, make a difference, blow people away, make them laugh, you know, take them on that incredible journey, and, you know, hopefully have people walking out of the room feeling that bit taller with that big smile on their face. So hugely passionate about what we do. I really believe in it, and we've built up this, it's just the most incredible team of people. We're up to about 14 members of the Tree of Knowledge team now, and the team we have right now, I can honestly say we've never had a team like it. You know, I've never met a group of people who are so committed to making a difference, so committed to creating a positive future in this country, so committed to helping people to help themselves. And I know for some people it's a wee bit corny and a wee bit cheesy, but I'm absolutely okay with that.
That's really interesting. I think it's quite it's the sort of American style mentality seems to be very frowned upon within Scottish culture.
Yes.
And that frustrates me personally.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the perception of people thinking this guy's a bit wacky, talking about inspiring the world?
Yeah.
Who does he think he is?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have at Tree of Knowledge, or anyone else who works in either the same or similar line of work, is unless you see it, or you know, you've got to be in the room. Unless you've experienced it, it's a very difficult thing to sell. I think the way that we work at Tree of Knowledge, I think a lot of those Americanisms that you're speaking about, I don't think we do have a lot of them. I think we've managed to move away from that, the really, really cheesy aspect of that stuff. And I think I'm the first to admit that, you know, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. It's very difficult when you go to watch a speaker, or you're at a conference and a speaker or a presenter's coming on. It's very, very difficult for an audience to not make assumptions. You know, a lot of people go to conferences or go to a workshop that maybe their boss has told them you have to go on it. And quite often people make their mind up whether they're going to enjoy it or not before they even get there. Some people have a very open mind, you know, and go and see what it's like, make my decision on the day. But a lot of people make their mind up already, so there are a lot of preconceived ideas. There's a lot of assumptions around motivational speaking, and you know, we've got a motivational speaker. You do instantly assume it's going to be very Americanized. It's going to be the whooping and the cheering and all that sort of stuff. And whilst I'm a massive fan of all that sort of stuff, you know, and like the more upbeat, the more energetic, the better. I think unless you've experienced it, you don't have an opinion.
I think it's a really interesting.
Don't share it.
thing that you say there as well, and I think especially with the high achievers within business, they've got a very critical, analytical kind of view on the world, haven't they? Because that's what they have to do day in, day out, and they've also got to a certain stance, and a lot of time there's ego behind it, no doubt, you know, and sometimes there's not, but they've got there, and I'm sure they have that kind of attitude of, what is he really going to inspire me with? What's this person going to kind of teach me? And they have that stance, or they're just in that critical mode. So like you say, they're just critiquing things as soon as you walk on. So very difficult to win them over. No, it is, and I go back to something I mentioned earlier about this approach that we have at Tree of Knowledge, the entertain, enlighten, educate. I mean, if you come and see me speak for an hour, for example, I mean, my first 15 minutes, it's just me telling stories, and I know people are sitting there for the first few minutes thinking, why is there a primary school teacher here? And even though I've not been in the classroom for over 12 years, you know, they're sitting going, where is this going? But slowly but surely, it all just makes sense and starts to fit together.
and you see their faces change. You know, people go from this to, actually, this is all right. And you know, quite early on in the work that I do, I talk about how I used to be and how I used to hate going to workshops. And you know, I'll say to my audience, I don't know if you've been at a workshop that secretly deep down you'd rather not be at, and they're all, oh my God, that's me. And you know, I you know, as much as we make people laugh in the presentations, you know, we deliver some really powerful, blunt messages, and a lot of the time we go in and deliver those messages because the owners and directors and managers in that company, they can't say those things because they feel they're not allowed to, or they feel that it's too controversial, or the internal politics won't allow them to be as honest as they want to be. The reality is, you need to be able to stand up in your company or your school or wherever you work and say to somebody, if you don't want to be here, go, leave. You know, I mean, the majority of teachers in this country are incredible. They do the most amazing job. They work so hard. They deserve those holidays, and they should be getting paid more. But there's a very small handful of them out there who don't like teaching. Get them fired now. You know, it should be question number one when you go into teaching. You should be hooked up to a lie detector test. Do you like kids? Do you want to work with kids? Not really. Right, out. Same in businesses. You know, if you've got somebody in your company who's a derailer, they might be good at their job, but if they're out to get you and they're causing problems, tell them to go. And I'll happily stand up and deliver whatever message needs to be delivered, as long as I believe in it. You know, I was once asked by a company who will remain nameless to speak at an event. They wanted me to motivate their employees straight after them being told that there was going to be redundancies. I said no. You know, I have morals. I was just like, that one's not for me. But you know, there's a lot of people out there very hard to win over. The great thing though is there's many people out there who are up for listening to speakers, who love to be entertained, who love to be inspired, who love to hear new ideas. And I think that goes to the majority of people. You know, we're all about learning at Tree of Knowledge, and you know, I'm passionate about learning and teaching and helping and supporting, and you know, I'm up for listening to speakers, and even though some speakers are maybe not my cup of tea, there's always something in there. And I encourage anybody who goes to those events expecting it to be crap to change that mindset, you know, and go in and you know, if you take away one thing, then the day's been worth it.
So when did you decide that your mission was to inspire the world, and why is that your mission?
So there's a little bit of a backstory to Tree of Knowledge and how it all came about and happened. I didn't start Tree of Knowledge. Tree of Knowledge, I was one of the not the very first, but one of the earliest employees in Tree of Knowledge, and we led a management buyout a few years down the line. So it's about 7.5 years ago now. All for the right reasons. You know, the previous one was great and ready for a change. We were ready for a change, and we essentially had to start again. And you know, at that point, there was very few of us. There was 3 of us, and we sat around the table, and we asked ourselves the question that I really believe that we should all be asking ourselves every day, and in business and in life, and that's why are you here? You know, if somebody had said to me years ago, why are you in teaching? Oh, I want to make a difference, you know. And for Tree of Knowledge, it was just bigger than that. There was just this feeling around the table of, you know, we want to have a vision statement, and there was that thing where you can write one that's a paragraph. It's just jargon and gobbledygook, and no one will remember it. And somebody who we'd support from Scottish Enterprise had said to us once, you know, you should try and get it maximum 5 words. If you're going to come up with a vision, you know, 5 words, 3 even better, something that you're going to remember. And we had that conversation, why are we here? And it was one of those moments where we just said, you know, we're here to inspire the world. We're like, that's it. That's as corny as it is for some. For me, it's not at all. For me, there's no other reason to do what you do. So it was on that day where we were like, yeah, we want to inspire the world. We're going to work with kids, we're going to work with adults, we're going to work all over the world. But we'll start here in Scotland, one step at a time. and we're on a journey, but we firmly believe that we are inspiring the world in the work that we do.
That's awesome. And so, I mean, like longer term, how do you enact this inspiring the world?
How do we enact it?
How do you make this happen? Does that mean setting up satellite offices in different countries? Does it mean travel? Does it mean what's the
all of the above?
Yeah.
You know, we have a plan. You know, we have goals, we have ambitions. In the 7.5 years that we have been running Tree of Knowledge, we've learned a lot, and we've tried different models around the country. And what we've learned is that the way Tree of Knowledge works best is when everybody in Tree of Knowledge is Tree of Knowledge. Full-time employees, part of the team, part of the family, bought in, they know the values, they know the vision. Every single person in our company has had a say in what the behaviours are that we expect from each other, you know, that are underpinned by those values. So I think there will be more travel in years to come. I think the team will grow. How much bigger? No idea. No idea. I mean, when we started with 3 of us, you know, I didn't think we would ever be at 14. And back then we weren't entirely sure if we'd ever, you know, work in anything other than schools. So there's been so much change, all exciting stuff. We've had some lows as well, but we've picked ourselves up and dusted ourselves down. And you know, I'm okay with failing. You know, I'm you know, I mentioned earlier, I'm passionate about learning, and if you can't learn from that moment where you're down, then maybe it's not right for you. So I think certainly for me personally, you know, I'm starting to travel more. You know, we're currently in discussions about speaking out in Japan, Athens. You know, there's occasionally conversations from all over the world. You know, as a business, we've been as far as Kuala Lumpur, out in Germany a few times. So really exciting, and I know that the other speakers in the business are just every bit as ambitious as I am, and every bit as keen to spread that word and go help people. So wherever people want us, we'll go.
And so on a personal level, as a speaker and educator, it's all output, isn't it? And I do an element of that on a sort of smaller scale, and kind of just been delivering for the past 3 days within businesses and different teams and stuff, and just even being there for an hour, 2 hours, educating, kind of working with people, doing workshops, it's exhausting.
It is.
So, but you obviously want to build this, you want to get your name out there and everything, so how do you manage just keeping yourself at that level where you can go out, you can perform, and you can deliver these to the best of your
it's really
abilities?
Hard. You've hit the nail on the head. You know, the work that we do, it's a performance. It's not an act, but it's a performance. In other words, you are giving and giving and giving. You know, so at Tree of Knowledge, if you're working in a school, you know, we work with easily about 100 teenagers in a day. So 50 in the morning, 50 in the afternoon, 2.5 to 3 hours each workshop. So you know, you get up early in the morning, you're in the car, or you've stayed the night before wherever you're working, and you get up for 2.5 to 3 hours and you just give it everything. Then you've got 45 minutes to not allow that come down to happen and reset. And then, because that next 50 deserve every bit the same energy and knowledge or experience that the first lot got. And it's the same in the businesses. You are giving and giving. So how do I deal with that? I have 2 amazing kids and an incredibly supportive wife, and time with them is really important to me. I run. This is a fairly new thing for me, but my running, I think, has been it's been a bit of a life changer for me. About a 1.5 years ago, maybe just over that now, I tried to run round the block that I live in, and I couldn't. Now at school, I played a huge amount of rugby, volleyball, cycled everywhere, walked. I mean, it was no bother. But I couldn't run round the block. Now, just to be clear about this, the block that we're on is no very big, and I was a wee bit embarrassed. So I decided a couple of days later I was going to run round the block. So I ran round the block, but I was wiped out, and I thought, I'm going to keep doing this and just keep going. So this year I ran my first half marathon, And I have landed myself next year a place in the London Marathon, having never run a marathon before. I have lost a chunk of weight. I have never slept better. I have never given better presentations on stage.
Yeah.
I've never been less stressed. I've never been more relaxed. I still get a bit stressed, and I'm still really nervous before going on stage.
Yeah.
I get real nerves still after all these years. Takes me back to being that wee kid in primary one, and wanting just to get that cheese that I never ended up getting. Damn those other kids that got that part. So the running has been a huge thing for me, particularly this last year and a half, as the company's just kind of boomed, and as the demand for me as a speaker is on the increase, and the pressure is on the increase, and the events are getting bigger, and more eyes are on me. The running has been a turning point for sure, and so I'm now focused on that London Marathon, where I'm running on behalf of Pancreatic Cancer UK, which is what I lost my dad to about 4.5 years ago.
Stuff.
So that'll be my motivator. So running, family, and in the last year I've also discovered mindfulness. We always at Tree of Knowledge, we've always delivered relaxation techniques and workshops to kids and to teachers and to businesses. But mindfulness, as you know too well, is something quite different. And a client had got in touch with us to inquire if we deliver any mindfulness training, and we didn't. So I thought, well, I'll buy a book, just start to get a bit of knowledge on it. So I bought Mindfulness, the #1 selling book in the world on mindfulness. I wasn't even 3 pages in. I was like, oh my God, they've gone into my brain and they've written a book about me. And I know that everyone reads that book thinks the same. And I've said to people, you're going to read it and you're going to think they've written about you. Oh no, I'm not like that. Oh my God. And it really was like they had gone in and seen how my brain operates. So I signed up for an 8-week mindfulness training program earlier this year. And that's been awesome. So we've introduced mindfulness at Tree of Knowledge every day, 1 o'clock. If you're in the office, because when you're out on the road, it's not always that easy. You still do it when you're out on the road, but it's not necessarily going to be at 1 o'clock.
Personal.
And everybody in the business stops what they're doing, downs tools, and then we have a team mindfulness practice for about 15-20 minutes. And then for the rest of that hour, we have learning time where everyone in the company goes away and does some reading, some research, some creating. And at the end of the day, they share back what they've learned and done that day. So little techniques like that, the running, my family, really gives me a way to remove myself from all the pressure. And then there's the stand-up as well, which I've kind of tailored. That's not the right word. Fizzled that out a little bit for just now. I was involved with another show called The Colour Ham for a few years, which was just mental and amazing and hilarious, and we won awards. We sold out 4 fringes in a row. That was dream come true stuff, but it's come to an end, and that's okay. We did some great stuff, but something in my life had to give because it was getting crazy, and it can't be my family, and it's not going to be my business because I love it.
Cool. Putting some real good sustainable practices there as well, haven't you, to rebalance you and to make sure you can keep this going. So that's good to hear.
You have to.
Great to hear.
I mean, even if you love what you do, you can burn out. You can run yourself into the ground. And I've had moments in my life where I have been incredibly stressed. I don't want to ever feel like that again. So I choose not to. I still get stressed, but I refuse to ever allow myself to get to a point where it's affecting my happiness.
It's never chronic.
No, this is it. And through Tree of Knowledge, we're all about happiness and positive psychology.
Cool.
Brilliant. Really good. So what is, I suppose, the best piece of advice that you would give to somebody that wants to become a speaker or a stand-up comedian?
Oh, get out and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way to do it is to go start. And I know that every speaker will say the same. You've got to start somewhere, so just get up and do it. Everybody gets nervous. I know there's occasionally people out there go, "No, I don't feel any nerves at all." I'm sorry, I don't believe you. I just don't. You know, nerves, as people always say, nerves and excitement are the same thing. It's the same chemical reaction in the brain. It's all down to perception. Okay, that's biology, that's fact. I get that, and I believe in it, and I absolutely take my nerves and turn it into excitement. And over the years, I've learned to enjoy that feeling of nervousness. But it's okay to be nervous. I think people get nervous. I think you get nervous if, for the negative side of it, you're nervous because you've not tried hard enough, or you know you've not put in the effort. On the flip side, I think most people get nervous because they care.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to look stupid. Everybody wants to impress and do well, so you get nervous about it. So just go do it. Write something. Find it. I mean, if it's comedy, there's amazing open spot nights. There's Red Raw at the Stand Comedy Club in Glasgow and Edinburgh, and Newcastle as well now. I mean, the Stand's just wonderful. When I did the Colourham show, we had a residency at the Stand in Glasgow every month, and that was just, again, dreamt about that when I was 14, watching Vic and Bob, and to be given our own night like that in the club where a lot of these people started was again, dream come true, you know. But go and do the open nights, do the Red Raw nights, write your 5 minutes, and if you bomb, you go back and you do it again. If you bomb again, you go back and do it again. There's too many people get up in front of an audience, have a bad experience and think, I can't do this. Yes, you can. Do I think everybody's hilarious? No. Do I think everyone can be a stand-up comedian? No. But you can give it a shot, and you know, you can be funny. When it comes to the being a speaker or a presenter or a trainer, facilitator of any form, you just have to get up and do it. It is the best feeling, and just being able to take all those nerves and use them for good and just get it back out there, you know. You know, I think I'm trying to think of maybe some like the best piece of advice I ever got. Do you know, there was I don't know if this is the best advice, but it was maybe the strangest advice I got, but it was great. I was speaking at an event down south, can't even remember what it was or who it was for, and there was another guy speaking before me, and he must have been about 80. And I said to him, "Have you done this for long?" And he's like, "Not really." Okay. I just assumed he's done this all his life. And he said, "How do you prepare, Gavin?" And I said, I don't really, this is years ago, I don't really know, I hadn't really thought about it yet. I was just doing what I do, and I think that's maybe still my technique, but I said, "How do you prepare?" And he said, I ask for help. And I was like, "Oh, great, so do you like speak to people that are booking you?" He said, "No, I speak to my mum and dad." I'm going, "Oh, okay." I'm thinking, you're about 80. Yeah, I'm pretty certain your parents are not here. At which point he said, "I know that sounds weird." He said, "But I just, in my mind, I just put a wee call out there to my mum and dad and just say, I need all the love and support you can give me right now. All that encouragement that you gave me as a kid, just send that my way." And that guy burst onto that stage, and he gave one of the best presentations I've ever seen in my life. Like I say, I don't know who it was. I've maybe dreamt this, but I don't know who it was. I can't remember where it was, and I was much younger than I am now, and I just remember standing there thinking, wow. And you know, it's interesting because ever since, when I've got a big one, I'm about to go in front of that huge audience, and the nerves are a wee bit more than they normally are. I find myself having a wee conversation in my mind with my mum and dad, which is a bit odd, but it works. So like I said, I don't know if that's the best advice, but that's something that I
just
was offered,
with you.
and I just, at the time, remember thinking, this is a bit out there, but then I found myself the next day doing it, and I've done it ever since. But just get up there and do it. Just, so what if you're nervous? Nobody in the audience wants you to fail, and if they do, then they're a horrible person.
So what do you think your unique skills or talents are? And do you think they lend to what it is that you actually do?
I think it's storytelling.
Yeah.
I think I have imposter syndrome, which I believe is a thing, an official recognised thing these days. I'm waiting for somebody to turn around and just say, "You're at it. Got you. You know, your time's up." I don't think I'm an expert in anything. I don't think I have incredible skills in any one thing. I just really give a shit. I really do. I want to help people. I want to make them laugh. I want to make them feel great, and I want to give them advice and share some experiences that help them to go and have more fun in their jobs, or have better relationships, or just be happier. And I think it comes down to storytelling. You know, I don't consider myself a masterful storyteller, but it is all storytelling. You know, I've seen speakers who get up and they give very, you know, it's just full of stats and facts and hard science and information. And don't get me wrong, it's cool. I mean, it's brilliant. It blows my mind. But that's not me. I get up and I talk about my kids. You know, I talk about being a primary school teacher. You know, last night I spoke at an award ceremony, a prize giving for a high school, one of the Edinburgh high schools, and they asked me to speak for 15 minutes. Now I have an issue with this because I normally speak for at least an hour, sometimes 3 or 4 hours. So when somebody says you can speak for 15 minutes, you think, what can you do in 15 minutes? That's hello and goodbye. And I was speaking to one of my colleagues yesterday morning, and he was like, "How long are you speaking for at this thing tonight?" I said, 15 minutes. And he was like, "What can you do in 15 minutes? So I googled it. I went on and typed and googled, what can you do in 15 minutes? Now it turns out there's quite a lot of things. So I narrowed it down to what useful things can you do in 15 minutes. And I found this website that's psychologists contributing, and they all came to this conclusion that the number one thing you can do if you find yourself with 15 minutes, stretching, right? So I told this story last night, and I've talked about how I discovered that if you stretch every day for 15 minutes, that's 91 hours of stretching in a year. It improves your flexibility, your blood flow, your health, and your mental focus. And I'm standing there on stage recalling this story thinking, what are you talking about? You're here at a prize giving. But I went on to talk about, I said, I'm not going to stand and talk about stretching in that context. I'm going to talk about stretching in the context of we're standing here tonight celebrating a group of young people who have stretched themselves, pushed themselves with courage and determination. And I found my way in through just a very random story about what can you do in 15 minutes. And I think that's where I differ from other speakers. If you come on a workshop for me on how to speak publicly, we're not going to do vocal warm-ups, because I don't do vocal warm-ups. There's nothing wrong with vocal warm-ups, but I have never read a single book in my life about public speaking. I haven't been on courses because I want to do it my way. I don't want to ever be compared to someone else. And all I can share with people if they come on my speaking workshops is what works for me. I'll never say to you, oh, I heard that this works for other people. We're going to come in and we're going to talk about being real, talk about Edinburgh Real, talk about being real, talk about being you. I remember as a teacher, somebody once said to me, the children will never ever remember what you tell them for the rest of their lives, but they will remember exactly how you made them feel. And that stuck with me into the speaking, and I think that's something that you need to remember. You know, if you think back to school, there'll be two types of teachers you remember immediately. There'll be the ones that you loved, they were amazing, they were fun, they were funny, it was heartfelt, it was real, they were caring. They might have been strict, but it didn't matter, there was a respect, it was just great. And then there's the other, there's who were horrible, scary, boring, angry, not interested. All the ones in the middle of those two extremes, don't even remember who they were. So which one of these two do you want to be? Do you want to be forgettable, or do you want to be memorable? If you want to be memorable, for which one? And for me, it's the same with the speaking. I want to be this person here. I don't want to be that person. Your audience will not remember everything you say, but they'll remember exactly how you made them feel.
It's a great message. Love that. What's your biggest win in terms of speaking?
Oh, my biggest win. Do you know? I think it's those moments where it's very apparent that there's somebody in the audience that doesn't want to be there, and at the end, they're the one that comes up to you and says to you, "I need to be honest with you. I'm one of those people that didn't want to be here." Because I address those people, and I make them feel very uncomfortable in the audience. I don't point at them. I know who they are because of their face. They have what's called resting bitch face. It's also an official thing. Check it out. Actually, resting bitch face is an interesting one because there's people have resting bitch face who are thoroughly enjoying what you're doing. It's just a face.
Yes.
So that's a slightly different thing there. But those ones that come up to you at the end and say to you, "I didn't want to be here. I didn't think I would enjoy it. It's not my kind of thing. But you've blown my mind." The big wins, though. Over 10 years ago now, I did a workshop in a school in Glasgow, and at the end of the workshop, all the kids, they were in about 4th or 5th year, they were all given a little travel alarm clock and a packet of plasticine, and they were to build what we called the plasticine dream, and they were to build it on the clock. It was just a wee last 10 minutes of the workshop, and the idea was that every time you look at the time, you're reminded that time is ticking, but you're getting closer and closer to this thing that you've made. And I got an email the other day from a girl who's currently in Seattle, telling me that when she was in 4th or 5th year, over 10 years ago, I gave a workshop or a presentation, and she made out of plasticine. It was a piano with hands on it, and her dream was to perform for this particular orchestra, this particular band in Seattle. And she mailed us just a few weeks back to tell us that she's made it, she's doing it, she's in Seattle.
Amazing.
Now, I'm not saying I made that happen, but I totally did. No, I played a tiny part, and it was just a tiny part, but I played a part, and we as a team at Tree of Knowledge, we're playing lots of little parts right now, and they're the wins. So I mean, I could sit and talk about the big standing ovations, and I could talk about the incredible feedback and a couple of awards along the way and things like that, but it's not about that. It's those moments where somebody walks up to you in the street and says, you're the guy that changed my life, and you're just like, no way. They're like, no, you really did. It's magic.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's brilliant. Something that we talk about, or we certainly have spoken about a bit, is the education system and how it's preparing the generation that's going through it just now with, I suppose, the ever-changing world. And you're obviously quite close to that. So what do you think about the education system just now?
I think the education system in Scotland, there's huge aspects of it are brilliant, phenomenal. We have some of the most committed and engaging teachers in the world in this country. The Scottish education system is revered around the world. I gave a talk in Germany. This particular one must have been about 2 years ago now. It was in a corporate setting, but I had mentioned that we do a lot of work in schools in Scotland, and this chap said, you get to work in schools in Scotland? And I said, I do. And he went, oh, world leaders. And I just remember thinking, do you know, we are in certain aspects, things like enterprise and education, we are world leaders. We're absolutely world leaders. The problem is we're not hearing about that stuff. We're not celebrating that stuff. There are companies like Tree of Knowledge. There are several companies out there, big companies, little companies, that are working in partnership with these schools. There's private companies, charities, social enterprises, all working in partnership with these schools, doing the most amazing work that is truly making a difference and is truly, developing tomorrow's young workforce. On the flip side of that, there are aspects of the education system that are broken, and they need fixed.
Very complex system to just change and turn around, though, isn't it?
It is.
So.
And I read something recently that said it would take 30 years
Yeah.
to turn it around.
Yeah.
If we, for example, if we wanted to do what the likes of Finland
Mm.
did
Mm.
years ago, where they literally overnight changed the entire setup.
Mm.
I mean, their system went like that. I'm sure it has its
Yeah.
flaws and
Mhm.
Yeah.
its critics.
Yeah.
But I think, I really believe that there is enough people within the education system here, though, that care. And as long as, you know, I have always been a part of the education system in this country. You know, I went to school, then went to high school, then went to uni, to then work in schools, to set up and run a business that does a lot of work in schools. I mean, I have been in education my entire life, and I'm really proud. I'm really proud to be a part of the
Do you
Scottish
see a
education
difference
system.
now from being an outsider, working with schools in this day and age to 20 odd years ago when you were in school, 30 odd years ago when you were
Oh,
in
for
school?
sure. Yeah.
Good or bad?
Are both in different
Right.
contexts, and different areas of education are better, some are worse.
Yeah.
The one I think when people watch conversations like this, they're looking for, people will be watching thinking, well, what's his one negative, what's the one criticism?
Which is what I was going to ask.
Yeah, there's a tiredness
Okay.
in Scottish education at the moment. People are knackered.
Yeah.
They're absolutely exhausted.
Yeah.
If you've got teachers who are knackered, and you've got children who are knackered, I don't really know how that works.
The fatiguing the children thing is really interesting. My wife's a primary school teacher as well. She works part time. She has there's a lot of kind of work outside of it to deliver a couple of days. But that's just part of teaching, isn't it? There's always a lot of work. But I look at my kids who are 1 and 3 now, and my eldest daughter is going to school nursery, and I see even just from that half day in nursery and all the other stuff she does, and she's an active wee girl and everything else, by Friday she's exhausted. And I think going to primary 1, these full on days at school, and by Friday you'll be exhausted, but you've got homework and you just want to do all the other stuff and the activities as well. And this, I'm looking at it going, I almost want to do a couple of days of homeschooling or something, just because we're kind of drilling in, you just work yourself into the ground, you get to Friday and then it's like, you know, do whatever you can, and we go into this perpetual cycle, which is a standard way of working, but it's no like that fire under anyone, is it? It's not people walking about loving their day, really looking forward to Monday and Tuesday again, and that's the issue I kind of have with it, and a worry I have as a parent going, is this the system I want her to play? Is this how I want her to do this? So.
I think, like every country, there's good schools and bad schools, good teachers, bad teachers, you know. My son's in primary 4 now. My daughter just started primary 1 this year, just a few weeks ago, and you know they're having. I think they're having a very positive school experience at the school that they're going to. We've been fortunate that the teachers have all been great.
Yeah.
My daughter, okay, the first week she was knackered. You know, we're sitting around dinner, her eyes are going like this, and her head's starting to go, and this is like 6 o'clock or 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. But I think in Scottish education we have to start celebrating and focusing on what's right.
Right.
Because there is stuff that's wrong, but that's what we're having reported to us on a daily basis. And I think we need to start looking at what's right and working out what we can learn from that.
What we can build on top of rather than
absolutely.
break down.
Teachers have a really tough job, but it's one of the best jobs in the world. And a good teacher, they're just so committed, and you give your life to it, you know. And you mentioned that there's your wife. There's other work over and above that. I mean, your day is not 9 till 3:30. It's quite often it's maybe 7:30, 8 till 5, 5:30, and then you're sitting at home at night doing your marking and your planning. I mean, when my mum was still working, she's retired now, but you know, even when she was doing the PE, there was the amount of planning she had to do was incredible. But then she moved into kind of behaviour management type stuff and things, guidance and things like that, and the paperwork was just unreal. And every night from about 7 till about 9, she was through in the other room doing paperwork, just surrounded by paperwork. Now, She didn't have to do that, but she wouldn't be a great teacher.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, my mum was one of the best teachers ever. You know,
Yeah.
she just, you know, you'd go in to see her in her school, and you know, mum was just a legend. Terrifying, but legend. Ex-PE teacher that smoked cigars. There's an image for you. She's brilliant.
It's a powerful lady.
Yeah.
She's brilliant. Scary but brilliant.
I'm really keen to try and, I suppose, nail down into, you know, what you're saying there, because it is something that I find very interesting. So I think the word you used was tired. Is that
There's
right?
a tiredness.
There's a tiredness, right?
Yeah.
So what would you do in order to address the tiredness?
Yeah. Well, the only reason I mentioned there's a tiredness because you were pushing me for what's the negative.
Mm.
On the other side, there is a spark. There is a fire in people's bellies in Scottish education right now, and what we need to do is help those people who are tired and lift them.
Mm.
So that's what we need to do. We need to adopt a growth mindset in Scottish education, and we need to embrace what's working, and we need to listen to the people who are getting it right and who are happy and who are enjoying being in education. You know, there's schools out there that are flying. You know, let's invite these schools who are maybe struggling to come and see how. Well, it happens. It already happens. The schools get invited to come and see how it works in the school and come and spend a few days. But one of the things I would do in Scottish education is I would make Tree of Knowledge compulsory for every school. And I'm not even kidding.
I've been thinking about this, and I'm going to say it. It seems very counterintuitive. To me, it seems like if schools were doing their jobs properly, there wouldn't be a need for you.
I would love for Tree of Knowledge to get so big and so successful that we do ourselves out of a job.
Right. Okay, that's really
How
interesting.
cool would that be? I realise there's a strangeness in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
I am the
really.
first person to say it. Tree of Knowledge should not have to exist. It shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, I'm also a great believer that schools should, no matter how well they're doing, be offering and supporting their kids with external experiences, external providers.
Yeah, I think so.
So even if you're the highest achieving school with the highest achieving kids and you have nothing wrong in your school, everyone's full of energy and having a ball, you can still bring Tree of Knowledge in, or companies like Tree of Knowledge, because those children, no matter who they are, where they're from, what their upbringing is, they deserve all these wonderful, unique, eclectic experiences.
Yeah.
So it would be cool if we did ourselves out of a job, but actually kids deserve all sorts of experiences, whether it's Tree of Knowledge or not, you know. And you know, when I went to school, you know, we'd go on trips. They would bring in speakers. We would do workshops. I think if you were just doing the same thing all day, every day, it would get incredibly boring. So I think I hear what you're saying about it being counterintuitive, but actually I think the more opportunities and experiences these kids get, the better.
And that's possibly how we support our teachers, so that they can get some time out, you know, and the kids can be refreshed through this alternative learning, new experience. The teacher gets some time to maybe do some marking in school, or they can go and do some mindfulness or something.
Absolutely.
You know,
and some of them are, you know, there's a lot of
yeah.
schools that are introducing things like mindfulness. But I think, teachers, I'm always going to stick up for the teachers. Well, the ones that care, that is. And most of them do. They work so hard, and they do need time to. And that's why, when people say it's ridiculous they get 6 or 7 weeks off at summer, it's really not. By the time you get to that holiday, my goodness, do you need 6 or 7 weeks? And usually the first week of that holiday, a lot of teachers are in school wrapping up stuff. You know, and then the last week or two, they're in. Well, that's it. Yeah, it's the last 2 years. My wife's a teacher. She's a deputy head teacher of a high school here in Edinburgh, and the last 2 years we've gone to Menorca quite early on in the school holidays with the kids, and both times she's that first couple of days she's not been 100%. It's funny how your teaching's very much like what we were talking about with Tree Knowledge. These teachers are giving and giving, and you give like 55 minutes, class leaves, reset, start again, give. 55 minutes, kids leave, start again, reset, go. And then at lunch, it's not like teachers just sit around for an hour eating their lunch. Quite often you're eating and marking, or you're on dinner duty, or you're out in the playground, or you're having meetings with kids or parents, or running a club or something. You know, it's you are on the go all the time. So I think education in this country needs companies like ours, just for that extra support. It's not that teachers can't do a good job, it's just extra support, extra experiences, extra opportunities.
Yeah, but it's interesting because going back to something that I've heard you speak about as well is, I suppose, aligning yourself with something that you love. So if that is your passion, and if you are living your purpose, it's easier to get through the troughs
Absolutely.
than it is if you're actively disengaged and you're just not feeling it. There's a quote that I heard you say when you started at one of your teaching roles, and a teacher said, "Oh, you've just committed a mistake. Don't smile till Christmas," or something.
It's actually a very well-known piece of advice in teaching across the whole of the UK. It was a head teacher. It was one of my first ever placements. In fact, I think it was my first placement. And she said, "Here's I'll give you your first piece of advice in the world of teaching." And it was that bit me thinking, brilliant. You know, here we go. That's what I'm here for. 4 years of this. And she just looked at me very seriously and said, "Don't smile till Christmas." I remember thinking, there has to be a punchline coming now, because you would never say that to anyone, let alone somebody who's new and keen and passionate and excited and nervous about going into this wonderful profession. And there was no punchline. It's about stamping your authority early, not allowing those young learners to see that approachable side.
I see.
So I've never offered that piece of advice. It's the exact opposite. Just keep on smiling. You know, what a horrible thing to say to somebody.
Oh yeah.
And I've heard of other teachers being given that same advice. And I mention it every now and then in workshops with teachers, and just make sure, please don't ever give that as a piece of advice, because I felt really sad. I just had that moment where it kind of got me right here, and I just a bit gutted. I was like, I've made a mistake. 10 minutes later, you meet someone else and you're just like, Mary Poppins. This is why I came into teaching, to be like you. You know, those teachers and classroom assistants as well, who are just amazing, who just float in like Mary Poppins, you know, rays of light coming out their face, just light a room up and make you smile. That's what teachers do.
Yeah, which is completely antithetical to what the advice is that you're being given.
By that woman anyway,
Unreal. Okay. Something that I'd be interested to hear your views on are the rise of the entrepreneur, and what you think about this. You know, and this is something else that we've spoken about, the bit divisive topic. But what do you think about the growth, I suppose, the perceived growth of entrepreneurship?
I think I have never called myself an entrepreneur, ever. Other people call me that. I won Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Brilliant, I'll take it. Delighted, blown away, amazing. Proper celebration, honoured. If I meet somebody and I say, "What do you do?" and they say, "I'm an entrepreneur," what does that mean? You know, I know of people who are absolutely entrepreneurs and who are incredibly entrepreneurial in their approach to life and work. Great, it's amazing. But there's lots of people like that, but they don't get called entrepreneurs. Kids are like that. You know, I know primary school kids who you could call an entrepreneur because of their attitude. It's a tough one for me to answer. I think it's important that we encourage entrepreneurial spirit. Absolutely. I think that's what we do at Tree of Knowledge, because there's a lot of stuff in there around mindset and attitude and confidence, and be creative and innovative. Do we need to give it a label? Maybe. And if calling yourself an entrepreneur is the way that it's going to be, then I'm okay with that. But I have never called myself an entrepreneur. because I don't think I am one. Because I don't think anyone really knows what it means. What do you think of it?
As a term, or
you refer to it as the rise of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I mean, have they not always been around?
Perhaps, yeah. I think
There's
it's
always been
become
business owners, hasn't there? But
Yeah.
it's just that term entrepreneur
Yeah.
or entrepreneurship has become trendy, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think it has. I'm all for being
No,
entrepreneurial.
it's fine.
Like I say,
It's what I was going to say, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm all for being entrepreneurial, and I think you have to be in order to be successful. Yeah, I think where my issue lies is where people go, yes, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you go, so what do you do? I'm an entrepreneur. It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it's kind of like you say, you know, we've all met true entrepreneurs, and you see that spirit in people, you see people acting like that, and you admire it because of the attitude and, you know, and all these different things that they bring to it, and their, you know, their courageousness and their ability to think sharply, take risks, all of that kind of thing. You kind of have to earn that, don't you? So, like you say, if we put all of those skills and attitude and stuff into a label of entrepreneur, then it's like, you know, you've got to earn. You've got to earn that title. You know, you can't just say I'm an entrepreneur and I'm CEO of a company that's only got one person in it. It's never actually started, never actually earned a crust, kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm not even sure I've not looked at a dictionary to see what the word actually means. But what I believe it should mean is somebody who starts multiple organisations and has been proven in doing that, as opposed to simply somebody who I started my own business. Like,
yeah.
Okay. So
I think there needs to be there needs to be some evidence of something ongoing and other things appearing out of it and so on. But I have no issue with people being referred to as being entrepreneurial. You know, when it comes to, you know, enterprise and education, I mean, enterprise is one of those things that it just keeps coming round and round and round. And we had enterprise was the big thing 10 years ago, and then 5 years ago it was enterprise, and now we're all talking about enterprise again, and that's your entrepreneurial spirit, you know, and all those wonderful skills that come with that. And you know, if we can teach kids the skills needed.
And how would you hone that in young people that you see that have the spirit, or even some that maybe don't quite have the confidence yet? How would you hone that?
I think there's lots of amazing opportunities in Scottish education right now. There's all sorts of programmes and projects and that they can be a part of, that they can sign up to. I mean, schools run all sorts of opportunities, again, whether it's through external providers like ourselves or through the government. You know, there's wonderful projects out there where you can learn all these wonderful skills. I think teachers are in themselves, you know, or can be in themselves very entrepreneurial in their approach to their lessons. You know, they're having to create all sorts of stuff. So I think there's numerous ways you could hone that, but there are loads of opportunities, and most schools, you know, allow these things to happen in their schools.
Cool. We couldn't possibly have you here and not speak about Dragon's Den at some length. So it would be great to hear about the sort of journey that took you to that, you know, the application process and what it was like.
So Dragon's Den, so that must now be about 6.5, 7 years ago. We did Dragon's Den. My business partner Alan, I think I had one or two too many drinks and decided to go online and sign us up for it. We got a phone call saying, would you come and do a screen test? And we were like, but they're not going to ask us to be on the show, we'll go do it. We drove to Manchester, we sat in a wee room, they pointed a camera at our faces and they asked us some questions. Heard nothing for a few months, and then we get a phone call saying, right, here's the day you're on. Oh, okay. We hadn't long led the buyout in Tree of Knowledge. We were running a company, having never ever run a company before. We didn't have a clue what we were doing, but we thought we've got nothing to lose. And we had a bit of a chat about it, and we thought, well, as long as we know the figures, and as long as we don't act like a dick, then we should be okay. don't get defensive if they criticise. Just nod and go, I'll take that on board. Don't go, oh well, hang on, and start fighting back.
Yeah.
And that was our approach. So the BBC flew us down to the studios where they used to, or maybe still do, film James Bond. It's all very secretive and very hush hush, and you arrive and you get shown through the green room, and you're not allowed to leave the green room without an escort, and if you want to go to the toilet, that's fine, but someone will stand outside just to make sure you're not talking with anyone or finding anything out. You don't get to meet the dragons beforehand, and it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. It was horrible, in fact.
Really?
But it was brilliant as well. It was a great experience, and it's one to tell the kids. So we went on and we filmed for 2.5 hours with no break at all, just start to finish. So it shows you how heavily edited. I think everyone knows, obviously, it's edited, but 2.5 hours. So sometimes they show 30 seconds, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Even the longer ones, you're getting 4 or 5 minutes or something like that.
I think we got close to 10 minutes.
Right.
We got one of the feature slots, which in itself was amazing. It just gave us that platform. I would describe our Dragon's Den experience as absolutely terrifying, really exciting. I'm delighted we did it, but I'll never do it again. Because I know now how big a risk it was. At the time, I didn't know. It was just whatever. Let's just do it. We've got nothing to lose. Now we have something to lose. I think we were a little bit lucky. I can see now how it can absolutely trash your business. Yeah. If you make a mistake, if you fluff your lines, if you forget your figures and look even slightly silly, people will just go, nah, you're all right. But we stuck to the plan. I remember my mum saying to me that night, "You look like two scared little boys." Well, funny you should say that. We were absolutely terrified. I forgot what I was going to say at the start. Here's me, who speaks for a living, who's never had a mental block in his life, apart from that one moment. We had 3 minutes of the pitch before the questions begin. Was it 2 minutes? Can't remember now. 2 or 3 minutes. Alan would say a bit, I'd say a bit, Alan would say a bit, I'd say a bit. Over to them, question time. Alan started. Hello Dragons, my name's Alan Burton of Tree of Knowledge, blah blah blah. I knew his bit word for word, and I knew exactly where I was going to come in. And as he was talking, my brain started saying to me, "No, you have no idea what you're about to say." I could see my brain just going like that. I could see the thoughts walking away, going, "Where is he?" And Alan stopped, turned and looked at me, and all the experience I had in speaking at that point had to come in to full force. And I just thought, just talk. Just open your mouth and talk, and you'll find your place. So I think my opening line was, "Hello Dragons, as my colleague Alan has just told you," and I started to repeat his words. And then it just went click, and I was off. And that was my one slip up, and it was the one bit I dreaded most, because I'm sitting like this, peering through the fingers, watching it on the telly. I know that some of the team had a bit of a Dragon's Den get together with family and friends. It was just me, my wife, and my mother-in-law. I couldn't have people around, and I was, again, the nerves were, and I'm sitting like this, and they cut that bit. Yes. Thank you, editor. And they edited it really nicely. As far as these things go, it could have been much worse. They only showed, obviously, a few minutes of 2.5 hours, so they concentrated on a couple of resources that we used to have that was specifically aimed at education. They didn't show the bit where we're talking about businesses and other stuff, but that's okay. But the next day, the phone rang all day. It never stopped. We had, at the time, we had 4 phone lines, and it just from 8:30 in the morning.
Wow.
It just rang and rang and rang and rang, and it was fantastic. Now, I would say at least 80% of those phone calls were just nonsense. It was things like, a well-known race course in Scotland got in touch to say, "You guys were absolutely amazing." I'm thinking, this is cool, we're going to get invited to the races. Not that I have any interest in the races. And they went, have you ever thought about sponsoring a furlong? I don't even know what that is. Is that the hedge? Is that, I don't know. And I was like, what? And they were like, we could sponsor a horse. You could have your name on the gate or the hedge thing. And I'm just like, no.
I want business. I don't want to be giving all my money out.
We were on the show to get money. So there was a lot of people phoning asking us for sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
But in amongst all of that, there was the odd phone call here and there from some really cool people, both in education and corporate. A couple of organisations that are, shall we say, some of the biggest companies in the world, said that we saw something. Do you do that for adults? Mm-hmm. We do now. And we had started to do stuff for adults, but that was the final shove, like just go and make it happen.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a great experience. We were offered half the money. We said no. And we walked away heads held high, really proud. The truth, I don't think we ever wanted the money. I think that we kind of agreed that. I think there was always that wee bit going, unless it's like an amazing deal. But we knew that they would want too much, and we said, we're here. We didn't tell them, but we're here for exposure.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Which dragon would you have most wanted on board?
It'd have been Peter Jones,
Yeah.
because of his involvement in education.
Okay.
But the great thing is, he said on the show, and they showed this bit, he said, I've worked in education for a long time, and you're the best I've ever seen.
Brilliant.
I was like,
there you go.
there's the quote.
There's your
Best I've ever
testimonial.
seen. Peter Jones. Legend.
Yeah, that'll do.
So, and actually, I've given a couple of talks at some of the Peter Jones academies
Okay.
since then.
Yeah.
The first one of which, on the way there, my tyre burst. I had a blowout on the motorway.
Jesus.
And got on the little ridiculous little skinny spare tyre or wheel, and we got there, and we'd been phoning saying, look, we're here, but we've got this problem. And me, being the performer, I made it very dramatic and walked in with the burst tyre and just chucked it on the stage, covered in oil and dirt, because the suit was just caked. And I walked in with this big wheel, chucked it on the stage, and went, right, let's begin. I totally didn't need to do that, but in my mind it was awesome.
Yeah.
So no, Dragon's Den was great, but I don't think I would do it again. It's just I'd look at it now and think it could have gone so wrong, because you see it goes really wrong for some people, and I think it's really unfair. It's a bit like X Factor now, you know, so not for me.
Okay, really, really interesting insight, so appreciate that. So it would be good now if we could probably move on and talk a bit about questions relating to success, I suppose. And it would be good to hear some of your thoughts on some of these. In actual fact, one or two of these you've kind of answered throughout some of your other answers. So, okay, so the first one I've got is, who or what inspires you?
My children, every day, their attitude to life, to learning, it's beautiful. Their enthusiasm for everything. You know, my daughter got excited tonight because she used a different fork. It's
so
just
good.
magic.
Yeah.
You know, if you used a different fork, you probably wouldn't even notice. They notice. They notice everything. You know, I often talk about my kids in my workshops and my speeches, and I talk about something that I refer to as that wee piece of magic that I believe so many people have lost and forgotten all about. But I see it in my kids every day, and you know, there's a story I tell often about Cian. He was 5 at the time, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up to the sound of him screaming, "Dad!" I got the fright of my life, leapt up out of my bed, ran for the door. He came running through the door, going, "Dad, Dad!" Like, I terrified him. "What is it?" And he stopped and he just went, "I know why they're called eyeballs." He just stood like this. I'm thinking, where's the intruder? But no, it was eyeballs. And this, as I tell my audiences, this for me is a moment of magic. It's 4 o'clock in the morning is irrelevant when you're only 4, but he'd woken up and had that moment of discovery, which is cool. But the moment of magic, the bit that came next, and that is he shared it. Because that's what you do when you're 4. You share everything. But because you're 4, you don't just share it, you share it. And you share it from here with heart and soul and passion and energy and excitement, and it's wrapped up in a big ball of wonder. And it is magic. And and as adults, how often are we encouraged in our jobs to share best practice, share knowledge, experience, inspiration? And how many people are actually doing it? And when they are doing it, how many of them are sharing it from here with heart, soul and passion, energy and excitement in a big ball of wonder? Kids are remarkable, and my 2 kids are no exception, and they definitely inspire me. My parents were hugely inspiring. My mum, incredibly driven, incredibly creative, and my dad was just a dude. My dad was amazing, funniest guy you've ever met in my life. Very, very intelligent, my dad. It's interesting, when my dad died 4.5 years ago now, that was another turning point for me. And that's, I think, his memory has become, without sounding too corny, it's become quite an inspiration to me as well. And everything I do, I just kind of wee image of him at the back of the mind, just watching over. I'm not a religious person, but I just have this image of him always there, just making sure everything's all right. So yeah, and I just, people who are happy, But my kids, they're first and foremost. I should really mention my wife as well. Ali kicks my ass.
That's what a wife should do.
Yeah, and I think I'm one of the few husbands who's prepared to admit it. She motivates me and inspires me. She's picked me up from some real shitty times, going way back, and we've known each other since we were like 18, 19. And when shows years ago fell apart and came to an end, she was the one saying, "Get out of your bed, go make something amazing happen. This is not you." And Ali is often the driving force behind a lot of the decisions I make. So I'm lucky to have found Ali, and I've had parents that are just awesome.
Yeah, good answer.
Thanks,
good
man.
answer. I've watched quite a few of your speeches and your TED Talks and whatnot, and one of the themes that seems very consistent is, I suppose, this enthusiasm, and like you're referring to your kids there, which I think is fantastic, and I do think that people lose that as they get older, and I'm not entirely sure why that is.
They can do. Some hold on to it forever.
I think it's great, and there is an example that you give. When was the last time you went home, rolled yourself up in a blanket and shouted, "I'm a sausage roll"?
Aye. There's your homework, lads.
There's
your homework. The sausage roll things are funny. I've said it a good few times now, but originally I didn't mean to say it. It was one of those, trying to think, what did you do as a kid? And it's one of those spur of the moment things, and it was a throwaway comment. But that night on Twitter, there was hundreds of people hashtagging "I'm a sausage roll." I was like, this is a thing, and you've picked up on it, and so many people have picked up on it, and
it's the Vic Reeves, it's the Reeves and Mortimer thing though, isn't it? It's a wobbly hand. It's just that, just let loose and just be daft, and really, because we have to be so conditioned, I suppose, or we feel we have to be so conditioned.
John, I'm glad you've mentioned the Reeves and Mortimer thing. I'm going to bring them into the previous question about things that have inspired me. I went to see Vic and Bob in January. It was one of Bob's first performances since he had his problems with his heart. And these guys, what age are they now? 50s, I think. Maybe mid-50s, maybe. I don't know if they're in their 60s yet, but I saw them at the Playhouse. And I cried with laughter. My face ached. And then 2 nights later, I was in London, and I managed to spawn a ticket to go and see Billy Connolly. I just went on my own.
Yeah.
And here's a guy standing there with Parkinson's. Spoke for 2 hours and 10 minutes, no break, and it was a masterclass.
Wow.
And between them, you know, they inspire. But I'm also glad you mentioned Vic and Bob, because when I'm on stage, I want it to be a bit silly, but not for the sake of being silly. It's because we're all just big kids, really, and I want it to be fun. And you talked about the enthusiasm and, you know, where all this comes from. I did a wee video blog recently about this very thing, and somebody asked me recently, well, I used to always be asked, you know, how did you become a motivational speaker? But recently, with a lot of the work of like Simon Sinek and things, it's, you know, why are you a motivational speaker? And I tried to come up with as good an answer as I possibly could recently, and what I came up with on my video blog was, I wanted to take everyone back to, I was about 14 or 15, it was, can't even do my maths, it was 1994, and it was the 18th of June, and it was my birthday. And for my birthday that year, I received a Walkman, a Sony Walkman, a cassette Walkman, and a £10 voucher for Our Price. Don't know if you remember Our Price. And living in Troon, the only record shop near to us was in Ayr, so that's 10-15 minutes on the train, and I could not be more excited. You know, 14, 15 years of age, on the train, on my own, with my new Walkman, going to go buy an album. No idea what I was going to buy, and I was drawn to an album by Green Day called Dookie. And anybody watching this in America will know that Dookie has a very different meaning in America. We don't need to discuss that right now. Most people here don't know what Dookie means. I didn't know at the time, but anyway, I didn't even know nobody really knew who Green Day were in this country back then. And I bought this album just because it looked silly. There was monkeys on the front throwing dog poo around, and there's a bit more insight to the word Dookie. And I always got the train to Ayr because it's 10-15 minutes. Never got the bus because it took about 45 minutes. But for some reason, I decided to go and get the bus, having never ever got on the bus. And I got on the bus, there was no one on the bus, knowing this was going to take 45 minutes, got to the back, put the cassette in, and I think that album's about 39, I think it's like 39 minutes and like 38 seconds or something like that, and I hit play, headphones on, and in that moment, my life changed. It blew my mind. It was one of those moments where the hairs on the back of my neck just, the opening line is, "I declare I don't care no more," and it was just this pounding drums and guitar, and for that next 39 minutes I was absolutely untouchable. I was buzzing, the adrenaline was, I in that moment I'd never been so inspired, so motivated, so prepared to realise my ambitions, my dream. I could see my dreams, I could touch my dreams. That feeling right there is where my why comes from. I believe that everybody has that album, or that book, or that film, or that show, or that song, or that whatever it might be, where in that moment we have been so absolutely engrossed in that moment. And every single day I get to help people rediscover that feeling in their jobs, in their classroom, or in their personal lives. And if we can even just get an ounce of how I felt that day listening to that album for the first time, then we're going to go change some lives.
That's so awesome. That's like a great story. I love that. Excellent.
Cool.
I'd like to hear how you define success.
The obvious answer is what everybody else will say, and it's happiness. And I know everyone else, or most people, will tell you it's happiness. It is happiness, but it's how would I describe it? An inner peace, perhaps. I don't have it yet. I'm getting close. Maybe we don't ever have inner peace. I don't know. But I'm like everyone else. I have my demons. I have my worries, my concerns. I mentioned a few times tonight that I'm a warrior. I'm still a warrior. But I think my definition of success is having a sense of purpose. There's an awful lot of people out there stuck in their comfort zone. They're bored. It's easy. It's really easy and it's cosy. But it's repetitive, it's boring, and I'm pretty certain they're not going to have any sense of meaning or purpose on a daily basis. So having a sense of purpose, being happy, knowing that you are making a difference and helping other people to be happier, but just having that little, that inner peace, and just knowing that, do you know what, I'm a nice person.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So based on your metrics, kindness, yeah. And based on your metrics, how successful are you then?
I've got a long way to go.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I've come a long way. I've done some cool stuff all over the world, whether it's in comedy, whether it's in speaking, whether it's in teaching, whether it's business, whatever. Don't get me wrong, I've done some amazing things and I have loved it. Bits I've maybe not enjoyed so much, but I have loved almost every step of this journey. I've never claimed to be an expert in everything. I've never ever claimed that I am a huge success in anything. I believe I have a long way to go, but I want to be the best speaker in the world, and I'm up for doing everything I can to get as far as I possibly can, and hopefully people are up for coming on that journey with me.
That's so awesome. I was going to ask you about like your kind of bucket list goals. You know, what are the big ones? But that's up there.
I mean, there's other stuff I want to do with my family.
Mm-hmm.
I want to show my kids the world. I want to take them on the trips that I've been on as a kid. My number one goal is that my kids are always happy. And I'll put their happiness before mine, of course I will. But business-wise, I want to be the number one speaker in the world.
Jeez, I love it. That's brilliant. So, if you could pick up the phone and make a phone call to the 20-year-old you, what would you say?
Oh my God. Do you know, I ask other people these questions, what are you doing to me? The 20-year-old me, what would I tell him right now? That's 17 years ago. My goodness, a lot has happened in 17 years. Stretch more. Actually, that might be quite a good thing. Stretch 15 minutes every day. That's 91 hours. You'll be more flexible and healthier and happier. What would I tell myself? Grab on with two hands, keep your feet in the ground, and run as fast as you fucking can. That's what I would say, and go and stop worrying about stuff, because it's pointless. That's what I would tell myself, and just grab on with two hands, keep those feet in the ground, and just let it happen. And I think, everything will be all right.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm starting to realise in my late 30s that everything's okay. We all have tough times, but everything turns out okay. Surround yourself with good people.
Mm-hmm.
Remove all the arseholes out your life. Doesn't matter who they are, just get rid of them. Surround yourself with good people, and you do what feels right, and just be kind. Always be kind, and always say thank you.
That's brilliant. Excellent.
Great.
I think we'll struggle to get any better than that. So that's probably the note that we'll conclude on. But
Thank you.
Been really, really fascinating, Gavin.
Good. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, you're more than
coming
welcome. And thanks for all your honesty.
No worries. Thank you.
Insights there.
It's definitely one of the hottest rooms in the world.
It's great to get some information and comedy at the same time. It shows you like everything you stand for and what you're teaching. The whole enlighten, entertain, engage kind of thing. It works. It really does work.
You know, guys, I really believe it does, and I love doing it. And I think if somebody told me at 20 that I was going to be doing what I do now, I think I would have found that really amusing. I would have been like, good one. The thing is, at 20, I was absolutely, sights were set on the original show that I did with my mate Rory. And in my mind, we were the next Reeves and Mortimer. There was no alternative. That was 100% where we were going to end up. But of course, that didn't happen. And that was really tough to deal with. That was a tough one. That was is this bit going on?
Of course.
Yeah. I think that was when I probably had one of my lowest points in my life. And then back into teaching. That picked me up. Do you know one of the best things I ever did in life? I got a job in game for 3 months as a Christmas temp. I had been teaching, doing the comedy. Comedy fell apart. I felt really sad about everything in life in general. Really, really sad for months. And Ali kicked my ass and told me to go and get a job. So I went and got a job in game as a Christmas temp. And see that 3 months? That was phenomenal. Surrounded by good, nice, down-to-earth people with routine, hard work, interacting with the public during Christmas. And I love Christmas. I really love Christmas. And that 3 months, it was at the end of that, 3 months was enough for me. And I was just like, right, it's time to go kick my own ass for a change. And that was back into teaching. And then I went on a workshop run by this new company called Tree of Knowledge. And that's when my life changed forever.
Awesome. It's funny, Christmas. Don't smell till Christmas. Maybe that was that coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, I love Christmas. Christmas is absolutely the best time. Just great. Again, whether you've got kids or not, it's just the best. You know. So yeah.
Brilliant. Gavin, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you for the curly whirly.
Yeah.
No worries.
It's a chocolate bar. If anyone didn't know that.
Yeah. Always take gifts. Gifts.
I like it. Brilliant.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
Gavin. Thank
Cheers.
you.
We have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls. It's barricaded the world with hate. You stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much, we feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost.